Coming up in this video, I'm going to be unboxing some of the Wave 6 miniatures from Wizkids for their Nolzur'S Marvelous Miniatures line. Welcome back to Mini Junkie, everyone. My name is Jarrett. Kind of excited about this video because I have received some pre-release Nolzur'S Marvelous Miniatures to paint slash... not mostly paint, but I'm going to actually do an unboxing in this particular video and give you like some first impressions. This is the Frost Giant, this is the T-Rex. I also have the Gelatinous Cube, the Shambling Mound, and I think there's probably a few others in there. I'll probably just unbox some of the bigger ones in this video, give you a quick impression, show you what I think of the quality, and you know, honestly, let me know below which of these figures you think I should paint first. I have to say that my initial thinking is probably the Frost Giant. I think he's going to look pretty amazing. So that's probably the next video, but we'll see. Let me know below what you're thinking. Also, the Gelatinous Cube looks like an interesting challenge to paint and, you know, to kind of come up with some interesting colors for what is mostly a transparent slash translucent figure. If you're wanting to follow along as I paint these characters and these new releases and these monsters, consider subscribing and clicking the bell notification so you don't miss any of these videos. So let's get over to the painting table where I do my unboxings and let's tear into these figures. Alright guys, so hopefully this is all going to be in focus and well lit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm using a microphone here instead of voiceover later so that I can just sort of do this in real time with you. I'm going to be opening it for the first time with you guys. So let's start with the T-Rex. I actually had no idea they were making a T-Rex, which is pretty cool. I have no idea how often these are used in Dungeons and Dragons adventures, but let's have a look at the model. The packaging, as always, is excellent. Protects the model and displays it nicely. And as we know, these guys come pre-primed. Really good primer coverage on these, by the way. It's super impressive, actually. And yeah, I actually also didn't realize that sometimes these come not completely assembled or partially disassembled. And I thought they were always pre-assembled, so that's interesting. And looking at it, you know, I think, just push it on there. Looks to me like you could get this on without glue, and yes, when I actually assemble this, I'll do a better job than that. I'd say probably what you want to do is, you know, shave this down a little bit with an X-Acto knife just to make sure it's going to fit in there nice and flush, and then maybe a little bit of oleoplastic putty to seal up any gaps you find. Regardless, you know, looking at the detail on this, really cool. Lots of different, hopefully you can see that, but lots of different texture in the skin and the scales, and he's actually pretty sizable, you know, huge compared to like an actual D&D. Let me grab one of the figures. This is a dwarf I've been working on, you know, like, yeah, he's a dwarf, but still pretty cool. Nice size difference. And the base is cool because I'm going to say cool a lot, sorry guys. It's, you know, I've been doing a so-so half-ass kind of job with my bases on my characters, but these larger ones come with a pre-sculpted base, and I think what's neat is these are, I don't know if these are meant to be rock or possibly like eggs or something, because they have some interesting textures in them. Probably rocks, to be fair. And then the other thing with the Nolzur'S and Deep Cuts line is there are occasions where some of the seam lines, like the mold lines, can kind of go through some important detail and have to be shaved off, and that can sometimes create, you know, flat areas of detail. But, and again, not too bad, like especially considering the price point and the quality of the sculpts, and the, you know, the level of detail is great. So it's something I watch for with each one. And then on this guy, it's actually hard to find. You know, I think there's one along his leg here, but it's blended in really well. I think possibly because of the way that the texture is done. There's very little of the seam lines showing here, so he's going to be easy to clean up. And because he's so textured and pre-primed with a light color, The quick techniques I've been using in my videos lately to paint these will probably work really, really well with this particular model. I'm not sure which colors exactly I will use, but yeah, awesome. And you know, the base is nice and flat, like this part of the base, because sometimes these on some models they can be warped, which is a massive pain in the butt. This sits nice and flat. So first model, just not a review, because I don't think I can review these till after I paint them, if I'm being honest. I think painting, it has to be part of the process of reviewing a miniature. But first impression, really good on this one. Next one we're going to look at is the Gelatinous Cube. Classic D&D monster. I used to be a dungeon master actually way back in my high school years, and had a ton of fun with that. But obviously I don't get much chance to play these days, but I can appreciate a good classic D&D monster. So this is pretty neat, actually. So okay. That's so the cube itself is this. I assume the clear material they've been doing a lot of the spell effects on the different models with. But what I like about it is it's got texture to it, but not so much. Like I know with the old Reaper Bones one, when I saw Dr. Faust painted on his channel, there was so much texture you could not remotely see what was in there. The base is interesting though. I don't know. I guess it'll sit mostly like that. So you won't be able to see the base much, although it's black, right? So I may find a way to raise that up a little so that you don't sort of feel like the bottom of this is black. Anyway, we'll figure that out. But it feels very sturdy, thick, good detail. There isn't any real sign of like a mold line that would have to be scraped off and mess up the translucent effect. There's a little tiny dot, I assume, where they injected it. But also really cool is God, guys, sorry, I gotta stop saying cool. Is that the interior, which has some of the slime effect, has skeletons, bones, and bits of armor and whatnot, and they're pre-primed with the Vallejo primer, which is just like a great touch. You'd think, oh, they'll just cut the corners and just put everything clear as one mold, but no, they've actually primed the individual pieces in here. Now the question will be how much of the, let's see here. Oh, of course, yeah, so this will be filling up that hole in the bottom so it won't look totally black, but you will kind of be able to see the skeletons, especially depending on where you position this interior piece. You can kind of see the skeletons and bones through the clear, especially once they're painted. So that's awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to this one. I feel like a Gelatinous Cube is supposed to be clear, because part of it is you don't see it till it's almost on top of you or you're inside of it. So, but that's kind of not very exciting as far as painting. So I may do like a plasma fluid blue type of translucency or a green. I don't know, but that also could impact how much you can see through it. So it's going to all depend. It's going to be a really fun challenge to paint. So stick around for this guy, because I think that's going to be a good video where we're going to learn together. More classic monsters. This one is the Shambling Mound. Just really a big fan of how they're packaged and the quality of these. And for the price point, it's just superb, really. It's occurring to me that you guys aren't getting a very close-up shot of these, so, here you go. This guy's really nice. Obviously the mouth, you got some toadstools on top. Different types of branches and vines. This is another one where I would say it will be another one where I do a lot of glazing of inks because there's so much rich detail here. You could spend a long time painting all of these individual branches and vines and creeping bits of foliage, and I probably don't want to spend all that time. So I will probably use different glaze effects to pull the detail out and give it some color and make it look rich and interesting. In terms of those mold lines and seams, a little bit here, nothing crazy at all. I think with a sharp X-Acto knife, it won't be too bad to clean this up, fill a couple gaps here and there, but I don't think it's going to be very noticeable as far as the seam lines. So this guy is really cool. Very impressed so far. This is a great, you know, the initial releases were cool. Mostly, what do you call it? I should have a cool counter on this video, but those get annoying. Mostly the original releases were characters, as far as I could tell, or smaller monsters, so it's neat to see some of these bigger ones start to come out. Best for last, maybe? Frost Giant. This is awesome, and probably one that I will paint sooner rather than later, so you'll want to subscribe so you don't miss that video. Or just keep your eyes open, I suppose, but love this. Okay, let me see if you can get a decent, even move me. It's got a skull, you know, maybe a dragon skull for a helmet. Lots of nice details on the armor. Cool beard. Cool beard, yeah. It's wearing mucklucks. Fur boots, which is nice. Lots of nice detail. Lots of nice texture on this guy that we'll be able to pull out. Definitely, you know, definitely quite a seam line here, but it's on the underside of his arm, so that was good planning, and it looks like this will be easy enough to smooth out over the muscles, so it won't really show much. Same with this one in here. Where you really don't want to get those seam lines is across faces and things like that, but it doesn't look like that's a problem here. Now, okay, so let's see. Here's the other axe. Lots of nice, really nice runic. Let's see if you can see that. Nice runic detail on it. So that's going to be another one where I'll, you know, it fits really nicely, but I'll glue it in there. And I'll probably do, when I do this base, and it's going to be just maybe a little bit of warping or a little bit of cleanup needed, nothing too crazy. I should be able to fix that. I'll probably use some snow effect on the base, so we'll work on making this base a little bit more interesting than some of my other ones, because this guy, I would say, is totally worth it. A little bit of gapping, like you can, hopefully you can see it. See some there and some there, and that's something where I'll fill it with the Vallejo putty, and it won't be very noticeable. But the ink glazing effect works nicely if you're not going to spend, you know, dozens of hours painting this guy, and you want to do him quickly for your D&D group or whatever. The ink glazing allows you to pull out this sort of texture really quickly and easily. Because it's thin, but it's also fairly rich in terms of coloration, so it will color it strongly while still kind of looking a bit shaded and highlighted and keeping that texture. So I think that effect, or that technique, should work pretty good here. Again, another seam here. This one's a little bit more prominent and noticeable, so that's one where, well, before I even glue the arm on, I'll take an X-Acto knife and clean that up as well. But again, let's put him next to that poor dwarf. And you see, that's a giant. That's an awesome, awesome giant. Totally badass. Now, I'll tell you what, while we're here literally doing this video, let's fix, obviously his axe is bent. I'm pretty sure it's not meant to bend that far. In fact, I'd say it probably looks cooler when it's straight. So what I'll do is I'll show you how I will fix that. There's different ways. One is with hot water, but I tend to use my hairdryer more often, partly because it's just what I have handy all the time, because I use it for drying washes and glazes and paint jobs really quickly, so I can move on to the next step. So I always recommend, I've had this, I swear to God, almost 20 years, and it still works great. So what I'm going to do is heat the axe up first by using the heat setting on the hairdryer, and it's already pretty pliable. I'm just going to try, and what you're trying to do is not necessarily heat up the whole model so that bits of detail start to droop or anything, but you can kind of tell the difference between bendy from being bendy and bendy from being heated up, because it gets really easy to move. And then what I do is, so I'll hold it kind of in place and switch to cool setting and just hold it there. And again, this is something you can do with a mix of really hot water, boiling water, and cold water, where you dip it in one and then dip it in the other. There's different ways. I like to use a hairdryer. See? Hopefully you can see that. It's straight. Well, it's mostly straight. I can continue to. I'll probably continue to straighten it a little, although I don't actually know if I mind a little bit of a curve. And this, once it cools off, it stays like it's not bending back. But yeah, I won't drive you guys crazy with the hairdryer noise anymore, but that's the way you would quickly fix that. And there you go. Just got to do a little bit more. So yeah, that's the 4 that I chose to unbox so far. Oh, and also, I got my hands on this guy. I've always been wanting to paint this one. I think it's probably the coolest model in the whole line, so far anyway, although this is now a strong contender. I wanted to make sure I do justice to this guy, so I'm not sure when I'll paint him, but I'm pretty excited to get my hands on this because they are hard to find these days, actually. So really cool. That's it for now. I do have some of the other smaller character ones from Wave 6, and I think maybe even some other models that I may have forgotten to grab. So, like, there's some automatons or something. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm impressed. I really like these. They're gonna, you know, a little bit of cleanup, and then I should be able to get to painting them. So again, subscribe if you want to sort of stay with me on those tutorials and you know, follow along and do some of these either quickly and easily or spend more time on them. Let me know what you think is the best approach. Really dig these. They should be out soon, I think. I'm not actually sure what the release date is, but really excited to get my hands on them. Really excited to paint them. And if you have any questions, honestly, it's hard for me to know what exactly to cover here. So if there's questions you have, post them below. I almost always answer all my comments, so I'll fill you in. Awesome. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.